Let me give you some reasons why I think you should watch this video about destructuring. First of all, if you don't know destructuring already, just stop what you're doing. You should definitely watch this video. Destructuring is everywhere, in every TypeScript project or in every JavaScript project, I would say. It's the feature that everybody loves to use, and yeah, you will find it in every kind of application. Even if you already know destructuring, I try to collect some ideas, tips and tricks that I have used in my project so that I can give you some extra inspiration which other places you can use it. And for those who are really experts and they never used it with TypeScript, I think this will be also interesting for you. We will see how this works. Spoiler alert, it will be tricky, but it makes sense. Okay, let's do it. Wait where you are. I just need to do this thing. Hello friends, it's Nikos here and welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, this is a channel about front-end development stuff, and you are watching my free course about TypeScript. Every week we are trying to learn a new feature of the language, and we use like pragmatic examples and yeah, real-life scenarios. So people are asking me what else to expect from this channel. I don't know yet. I have a lot of topics in my head, but for now I am focusing on this TypeScript course. I hope it will end at some point and we will start playing with some modern tech. And yeah, I really want to teach you a lot of crazy stuff. Just write me also in the comments what you would like to watch in this channel, or if you have any question regarding the topics we are analyzing here. Today we will learn destructuring, and to explain how destructuring works, consider this example here. This is basically a settings configuration object that contains all the settings in our system. For example, we have here the updates, we have some system settings such as the volume, the brightness, and if we are using dark mode, we also have some user notification settings if the user would like to get emails, push notifications, or in-app prompts. Now let's keep this settings object here just to be visible. And what I will try to do is implement a very simple React component. Don't worry, you don't need to know React to understand this example here. Just imagine that this is just a plain function that returns some kind of UI. So let's declare this function. We have our function settings. And our function is actually getting the settings object. This is the object that you see right here. And what we want to do is basically return some kind of markup. And I'm going to paste the markup here, so you don't want to see me typing all this stuff. And I'm going to import React from React just to satisfy JavaScript. Let's ignore this problem here. I haven't installed React as a dependency, and that's why this issue here is basically valid. But we don't care about this issue. All we have to do is to replace these x's here with the actual values. So what we have to do is to read these values from the settings object. And if you are like me, then probably you would prefer to have your code clean. So you don't want to have here, for example, settings.updates, and then to make it very difficult for someone to read the code. It will be better if we have here updates, if we have here something like volume, for example, and if we have here something like push. Here, basically what we have to do is, if we have push enabled, then we will not display any message, otherwise we will display not. So this will be you have, without anything, enabled push notifications, otherwise it will say you have not enabled push notifications. And of course, I can have here the push text and somehow implement this as a const here. All these variables here are red because we haven't yet created, we haven't declared these variables. So let's try to do that here. I'm just pasting the code again, and yeah, what we are doing basically is we're getting updates from settings, we're getting volume from settings.system, and we get the push from settings, user, notifications, push. Okay, that gets a lot of stuff. And it seems that we don't have any errors at this moment. So now you may be wondering, why the hell we are declaring all these functions here? Well, for clean code, I think it's nice to have a very readable function, and that's what we are trying to do here. We are declaring some stuff in order to make it easier for someone to follow the markup down below. And yeah, this is also a very nice text that we basically, it's kind of confusing, I think, if you have the logic here together with the output of this function. So I think now it's much more readable. But, and I know some of you will be a little bit conservative about all this memory we are consuming here, but you have to think that it's very, very fast in JavaScript to declare and to store these variables, and the garbage collector will do its job really, really fast. Okay, so how can we improve this code here? Well, by using destructuring, of course. And let me show you a very nice trick that we can use already in our code. So destructuring is really fun. You start with const, you open the brackets, and you specify the object from which you want to read values. So with destructuring, instead of manually following this dot chaining here to specify the path, what you can actually do is go here and type the property you want to declare. And that's basically it. These two lines have the same, the exact same result. So here we are declaring an updates const variable, and we store the settings.updates. And the same thing happens is happening here. So when we say const and we open the brackets, we are actually declaring the updates as a variable, and that's why it's now available here. Don't worry about the types now, we will deal with them later. Now let's try to refactor the second one. Okay, let me move this code here, and I will comment it out so that we know what we are doing. And what I will try to do is to basically destructure the second variable, which is the volume. And to do that, we cannot just say volume, of course, because volume is not a direct child of the settings, right? It's somehow nested within the system. And yeah, what we have to do here is to basically call system first, and from system to specify that we want the volume. And notice that as I'm saving the file, we use prettier to automatically structure the file for us, makes it much more readable. And one important note that you need to remember is that the system here is not being declared. So as you can see, the text editor is very smart. It highlights with this pink, whatever it is, this color here, all the variables for us. And these two are variables that we already declare here, but the settings and the system are not. So here, for example, the settings is coming as a parameter from the settings object, and here the system is just a reference, right? We will not, we are not able to just use the system here. It's simply not gonna work. Okay, and with the same way, I can actually use the user notifications, and I will open another bracket to get the push value. And again, I'm saving the file, and Prettier will automatically fix the styling for me. And basically that's it. This is the result. So all these 3 lines of code here can now be removed. And yeah, this will be the result that we were expecting. So I'm not sure if you like it or if you don't like it, just write me in the comments. I really want to know your opinion here. Do you prefer this syntax here? Do you prefer having the variables declared within the markup? Do you prefer manually declaring them by yourself? It could be an option too for you, I don't know. But yeah, this is basically one of the most popular ways you will find in JavaScript projects. Now, some people may argue that we are using too much code now to retrieve all these values, right? Why this is even useful? Well, let's think about it. If you want to display something new, instead of searching where you have declared this thing and how exactly you retrieve the value, what we can do is, let's say, for example, I want to display the brightness, right? I can go here and check that brightness is under system, and I can go here and declare the brightness variable. And now I have access to the brightness. And what I can do is duplicate this line of code and say that the brightness is set to brightness. And this will get the value 0.7. How cool is that? And it's actually really useful if sometimes I don't use one of these variables. Let's say that we are removing the brightness again. My text editor will actually complain because brightness is declared, but its value is never read. Okay, so now we can simply remove the brightness again, and yeah, that will fix the warning. Before we introduce types, I would like to show you some cool, nice features we get for free when we are using destructuring. In addition to easier access, the destructuring operator allows us to specify default values, in case there are no values set from the very beginning. So to set a default value, we normally use the equals sign. And here's how it works. So for example, here updates is 0, but what if updates was not even defined in this object structure? But for some reason, this value property is missing. To avoid displaying undefined here or something else, what we can do is basically say that the default value for updates will be 0. And this is actually the syntax that we are using here. This is not that we are declaring this to be 0, but it's actually the default value. So let's declare some default values for volume. Let's say it will be 25, and push, let's say that this will be false, and that will be it. Again, if for whatever reason settings will not contain updates, volume, or push, they will retrieve the default values that we set here. How cool is that? I mean, we don't need to write extra code for that. I have seen people writing the default values here, for example, updates or 0. This is not a good approach. First of all, this one is a buggy feature. We've probably want to use this operator. We've talked about this operator in a previous video, but I don't think it's nice to have logic here. As we said, I think it's better to specify the default values within the destructuring itself, and it makes much more readable. Another cool thing we can possibly use is to basically get rid of this object here. So what we can do is grab the object, I will cut it for now, and I will remove these two lines, and I will replace the settings with our destructuring operator. And yeah, basically now we use destructuring as in the parameters of our function. And note that here we don't have multiple parameters, but we start with brackets. This means that we only have a single parameter, which is an object, but we don't care about naming that object. What we care is about retrieving some, let's say, values like the updates, the volume, and the push that we have here. So basically, we reduced the code to the minimum. This is the minimum we could get. And we still get access to the default values. Another cool feature of destructuring is we could use aliases. And this is really helpful. For example, let me revert the code back to how it was before. Let's imagine that here you had, for example, the updates already defined as a parameter. And now, of course, we have a conflict here because update is being used twice. So somehow it will be such a shame that we cannot use destructuring just for this property here, because we already have another one with the same name. But no, actually we can. We can rename the properties we are destructuring. And that's gonna be very easy. All we have to do is to use a colon here and specify the name that we want. For example, in our case, this will be updates counter. And now let's get rid of these updates here because it will be confusing. Now what we have to do is basically use the updates counter here. And yeah, basically that's it. We have renamed the updates property to updates counter. And again, as you can see here, this is marked as a reference. It's not a variable that we declared. That's why it's white. And only these three are colorful. So only these three will be instantiated. If you go here and try to use the updates, TypeScript will complain because updates has not been defined because we have renamed it to updates counter. Now, although this is very useful as a feature, it raises a very interesting question. Since here we are using this colon to specify the alias, how on earth we could specify types? Well, that's a good question. And the answer is, you will not really like the answer here. So in order to specify, I'm going to comment out this code just to show you very quickly. If we had to destructure only the updates from settings, then within this object notation here, we unfortunately cannot specify any types. Unfortunately, in TypeScript, we have to use the colon after this object notation and start another object notation. And here we can specify the type. So this updates counter, for example, will be a number. And yeah, that's a little bit tricky, but it gets even trickier. If I had to rename the updates counter, let's say the updates to updates counter, then this will be again the correct syntax. As you can see here, we are destructuring the updates property, we are renaming it to updates counter, and then we are opening another object notation, but here we are using the original name and we specify the number. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because this is the actual input that we get. If you remember, we are getting the settings as an object, as a parameter. And the name in the original file, it starts with, it is defined as updates. So this is the name we should use to define our types here. And now it's the time for a coding challenge. Let me comment out this line of code here and restore the one that is here. And here you can pause the video and try to specify the types of all the variables that we see here. So I have already gave you one hint on how to do it here. If you want, you can visit the blog post. I have a link in the description of this video. You can grab this code example here and you can play with it in your favorite editor. Or you can even click the link. I have an online playground associated and you can work there directly. At the end of this video, we will see the solution. Basically, we will try to write the types for this part of code. Another question when it comes to destructuring properties is how can we use dynamic keys, dynamically generated keys for our properties? So for example, you know that in JavaScript, you can have something like settings, and you can specify like updates as a string. And this will be actually the same as if you had called the updates property directly. So these two lines of code in JavaScript are the same. Well, this is a really cool feature because it gives you the possibility to dynamically create these keys by yourself. So here, for example, you can have the updates key, and you can specify that this is updates, and you can use the updates key variable here, and that will work perfectly fine. So what I can do here is to actually use this updates key variable in my destructuring object notation, and yeah, that will also work perfectly fine. Just one small important thing, always you always need to provide an alias to always provide the name. That will not be acceptable, and yeah, here you will see this not really helpful error, but yeah, just keep in mind you should always name the dynamic destructured properties. That was it. So far, we've seen how destructuring works with objects, but destructuring also works with arrays, and let me show you how this works. So here's an array of zerns, and yeah, it contains some 3 music types, and I guess the most common way to retrieve values is to have something like const, I want the first value, and then zerns 0 will get us the first value. Well, it turns out that you can have a much better coding experience here. For example, you can have const, and I'm opening brackets, and here we specify from where we want to read, and yeah, this is basically the same, the exact same syntax that we use for destructuring, but now we are using the array brackets here to destructure arrays. And here the only thing we have to do is to specify the names of the variables that we want to use. For example, first, second, and third. These names could be whatever you want, for example, ABC, it doesn't really make any difference. But this here has the exact same, let's say, result as if we had, for example, to use this one. So these two are identical. But here, of course, we are retrieving 2 more variables. And now if I, for example, call the first one, we will get back rock. If I call, for example, the second one, we will get back pop, and so on and so forth. So now let's talk about types. Unfortunately, to define types here will be a little bit tricky. If I have something like, for example, array, and I specify that I have an array of strings, this will work perfectly fine. But of course, this doesn't really represent the reality, because if one of these values is a number, for example, yeah, that's not going to work. Another idea is to use a tuple here. We haven't learned this feature yet, and I think it actually don't work. So you need to be a little bit picky about destructuring arrays. Of course, similar to how we destructure objects, here we could also specify a default value. So if this array, for example, is completely empty and we don't want to break our code, what we can do is, yeah, pretty much specify a default value for all these values. And yeah, I think it will be fine. Now, here it's basically complaining because we don't have any types here. Let's add some types, and then TypeScript will stop complaining. Now let's put back our values here, and let's remove our default values, because I want to show you something really cool. Let's say, for example, that you want the first value, and you also want the third value, but you don't really want to declare the value in the middle. Is there any way to skip that one? Well, yes. Here's what you can do. Just go here, you press the delete button, and yeah, that's it. This is a valid JavaScript code. We are getting the first value, we are skipping the one in the middle, and we are getting the third one. And yeah, this means that we can play with these commas and then get to the last one. I don't really like this syntax here. It's probably not really intuitive for developers to read, right? So you should somehow use it carefully. Now, of course, if we want, we could potentially skip the first value, and yeah, that will be something like this. Or we can skip both these two first values and get the third one. Yeah, I think at a certain level this is easy to read, but after that point it becomes really tricky. Now, these concepts here become really useful when you use them with functions. For example, you have the function getFirst, and here we can use an array to destructure an array, and we can get only the first character, which will be potentially a string. And yeah, here we can return it. And that will be a very nice way to return the first item of an array. And now, the solution to our previous coding challenge. If you remember, we had this function settings, and we use this very nice destructuring notation here. So what we can do to define types, basically right after this large object, we start with a new one. And here what I'm going to do is say that updates is a number, then we have system, and within the system we have volume, which is again another number, and then we have user, and in the user we have notifications, and in the notifications we have push, which is a bool value. Okay, so I know this syntax is a little bit complicated, it's like a brain fuck, I know, but there are two steps to improve the readability here. So I'm gonna copy all this part and move it back inside our function declaration. So this will become our function parameter here. And what we can easily do is take the type part, only the second object notation that describes the types, and we can create a new interface right before our function. So here we can say something like interface, I don't know, settings, conf, and yeah, we basically paste the object. The equal sign is not required. And here we can, of course, use the settings conf interface to specify what is the expectation for this object. And here we can use the settings conf to specify what will be the expectation for the first object parameter. And if you are like me and you want things clean, what we can do is we can cut this interface from our TSX file, and we can go back to our settings file, and here we can have the settings conf, and we can use it in our configuration. I'm not going to add all the missing types for now. I'm going to comment out what is missing, but I think you get the point. And okay, and now what we can do is export our interface. I'm saving this file, and let's go back to our component, and we can import it directly from the index.js file. Now, here you see that I already used destructuring, because the export of this file here will be a named export, as we say. And here I'm using destructuring to actually import files within a specific, to import. And here I'm using destructuring to import specific members of that file. Okay, so we improved readability and we actually learned a couple of new stuff. Good job. Destructuring is one of these aha moments that you have in your career as a software engineer. After spending all these hours in your life learning how to retrieve values from objects, from collections, arrays, from wherever in this world, you discover something like destructuring and your life changes forever. Okay, I'm a bit dramatic here, but this is actually how I feel. These features have changed our lives, and I'm really grateful that we have these features in JavaScript. And I'm also really happy that I have so many nice topics to share with you in this course. The reason I created this course was to share the importance of TypeScript and to demonstrate how easy it is to get started. It takes a lot of time to put together all this content, even for a single episode. That's why I actually call it too long to read, because it actually takes a lot of time for me to read all these sources and come up with just what I try to summarize just what is important for you to remember and present it to you in the nicest way possible. But that's why I have created the Students Companion page, in which you can find all these episodes and the articles in this series. Now, since I launched this page and this channel, I have received a lot of nice comments from all of you guys, and I would like to show you all these comments that I'm receiving. I would like to show all the people who are contributing, who are giving feedback. It's really helping this channel to grow, and I really try to read every comment, the bad and the good and the feedback and everything. So please keep writing, keep commenting, keep liking, keep subscribing, keep everything. And I get a lot of questions for people asking me how we can help you grow this channel and how we can contribute. So there are a couple of ways to contribute. First of all, this is an open source project, so you can actually see everything and create pull requests. Or you can just share with your friends in the social media the videos that you like, the articles that you like, or even the Students Companion page, because it will help them learn TypeScript. But please only share them if you really think it will help them grow. And don't forget to use my handle or this hashtag here, too long to read TypeScript, because this will make your posts visible to me, and I will try to retweet them or even include them in my videos. And every episode has a corresponding article. You can find all the coding examples and read everything I presented to you in this episode. Let me know if you have any questions or if you want to suggest any topic for the next videos. And to get more videos like this in your feed, just click on the subscribe button here, or if you want to watch the series from the very beginning, check out my playlist over here. Until the next one, thanks for watching, have a creative day!